morning. How was everyone today? Everybody good? Good. This morning, I have a question. So, it's nothing big. Well, it is big. It's very big. But I think, and it's a question that I had to ask myself. So, we are in this house very much focused on a third day, finished work, living out of a place of abundance in that promised land. And I very much want to live my life the way God desires for me to live my life, in that place, not in a place where I have a wonderful life. I have an awesome life. There's nothing wrong with Angie's life. Okay, I don't want people to believe. I don't want you to think that I feel that way, because I do not. But I also believe that there is more to this life that I live than what I experience. In the fact of where God is leading me and guiding me, is that life should be lived out of a place of abundance. Life should be lived out of a place of... God desires for us to live out of that third day. God desires for us to live out of a land of promise. That's where God desires for us to live. And not saying that life is going to be perfect and things are never going to go wrong, but that our reaction to those things are different because of the place, because of our understanding, and because of where we live out of. And to me, this is me. I will not say anybody else. This is me. That my breakdown there becomes in my knowing of who I am. My understanding here in between my ears. And the last couple of times I've spoke, I talked about my relationship with God and how that's my responsibility, and that needs to be something that I am constantly aware of, that relationship. Somebody said something to me about the other night. I like it when you said that when you're having a conversation, when I'm speaking to you, I want you to acknowledge me. When I'm speaking to my children and I say something, I want a yes ma'am. I got you, Mom. I heard you. Not just the back of their head as they walk away from me, I want to know. I want to hear something back, And so that is a relationship. That's a conversation. It's not just me speaking to the air. It's when my relationship with God is not just me speaking to the air. It's a conversation. It's a relationship. I want to hear Him. Guess what? He wants to hear me. So having that relationship, cultivating that, and then that we are, not to limit myself. Not limiting who I am because I've limited God. I limit God, and so then when I've limited Him, I've limited myself. And so I had, people do this all the time. Okay, now, I don't even remember what it was this week, but I was listening to something. I don't remember what it was. I can't remember. They were like, okay, now close your eyes and I want you to think about this. And Pastor Randy said something, I think it was Sunday. It may not have been Sunday. I don't remember. But I remember him saying it. That there are things that you have seen yourself do. There are things that I've dreamed that I would do. I've seen myself doing them. Haven't done them yet. I haven't seen them manifest yet. They're not there yet. But I believe that's part of who God created me to be. That's something that He put on the inside of me. That's what Pastor Randy said. Look, those things that you've seen yourself do, those things that you've dreamed about, God's put on the inside of you. They're not just wild imaginations. God put those things on the inside of you. And so when I was getting ready for this morning, the thing that came in my head is, Angie, who are you? Who have I created you to be? And I could stand here and say all the things that I'm more than able, I'm more than a conqueror, I'm a priest and a king, and I'm all the things that we've been taught, and all the things that are in His Word that speak to everyone. But who am I? Who are you? Who has God created you to be? What has He put on the inside of you? Not just all of those things, but in that relationship that you've had with Him, what are the dreams and the desires that He's put on the inside of you? The person that He's created you to be, the gift that He's given you, the person that you are. I mean, each and every one of us in here is different. Not one single one of us in here is the same as the other. Not one person. That's what, nobody in here can lead praise and worship like my daddy. Nobody. No one. God put that on the inside of him. He put that desire there. You know what? Nobody can do that. Nobody in here prays like Pete. Only Pete prays like Pete. God put that on the inside of Pete. Nobody in here does this like me. You know, tie him behind my back and we won't say a word today, okay? You know, I don't move a lot, but my hands do. Nobody is like you. God has not created anybody else to be you. There is a you here for a specific reason, for a specific purpose. I can't speak all the... Nobody. Who has God created you to be? Who has He made you be? You know, I can't be who God created me to be until I allow Him to show me who He created me to be. I can't be that person. I can't live that life. I can't live that life without that relationship with Him. I can't live that life by limiting Him or limiting myself. All of those things work together. I cannot be and I cannot live the life that God created me to be until I understand who I am. Until I understand who God created me to be. And it's a very specific thing. And be willing to be that person. Willing to be who God created me to be. Without limitation. Without fear. Without worry. Without all of those things. When I step into the person God created me to be, the life that He created for me to live is automatically there. I believe the life that God created for me and the life that He's given me is right there in front of me. He hasn't hid it from me. He hasn't put it under a bush. Just came to my head. He hasn't desired to put it in a box and hide it away. But I have to be willing. I have to be willing not to be ashamed of who God created me to be. To do the things that God created me to do. To live the life that God created me to live. Because guess what? My life, I have a wonderful life. I have an awesome life. But guess what? The life that God has for me to live is even more awesome. It's better. Why? Because you know what? Every day I stand here. It seems like, okay, God is trying to drill it through my head. That is why I have to say it every time I get up here. Hello, Angie. What is wrong with you today? Why are you still so consumed with all those things? Even today, even this morning, I'm like, God, okay, today I'm done. I'm finished. I'm not worrying. I'm not stressing. Why? Because I know you've already got it taken care of. Why? Because how many hundreds and hundreds of times have I thought, Angie, okay, this is how it's going to work. This is how you're going to do it. This is how you're going to take care of it. You got to do this and do that and do this and do that. And God's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why? Why are you so... I've already got it taken care of. I've already worked it out. But Angie's still, because guess what? I still do not truly understand who I am. I still do not truly understand who I am. And I'm not a slow learner. I'm not a slow learner. I'm not someone who's, behind the curve. But what I'm trying to say is that Pastor Randy always has used this analogy 100 many times. You know what? If you are a Rockefeller, guess what? You have no concern for money. Why are you worried about it? Why? I mean, Dean is like, he's been studying, he listens to all this financial stuff on YouTube and all these people, and they talk about trust and this kind of insurance, this is what you need to do, and you do this, and you set it up this way, and you do it now, and then 3 generations down from you now are so wealthy just because of where you started that generations from now your family will never worry about money. Never worry about it. Why? Because you started something small and it grows from there. It goes from you to your kids to their kids, and it just keeps compounding, and it keeps going, and it keeps growing because you can't use it all. And they never have to worry about that. See, if I don't know who I am, then I worry about that because I don't understand what's at my disposal. Because I don't understand that, hey, this is who I am. This is who I was born into this family. And just because I was born there, this is who I am, and this is what is at my disposal. Do you understand? This is the family you were born into. This is where you were born. This is who you were created to be. Do you not understand what is at your disposal? Do you not understand what is in your hands? Do you not understand that? And see, Angie doesn't understand that to the point that it transfers into everything that I do in every area of my life. That it comes from out of here, out here. See, okay, it's okay in here. It's all right. It's right here and right here that there's a problem. To truly understand who I am, that's who I was born to be. That's who I was created to be. And that all of that is mine. Not because of, hey look, not because of what I did, but because of what was done for me 2,000 years ago, or what was done for me at the beginning of creation. It was passed down to me. And guess what? It didn't diminish as it got to me. It became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It didn't become smaller and smaller and smaller. It just grew. I need to understand that, to the point that it changes the life that I live. It is changing the life that I live. Listen, today is better than yesterday. Tomorrow will be better than today. Because my understanding is growing and it is changing. I am learning. But there's so much more for me to learn. So much more for me to understand about who God created me to be. And what He put on the inside of me. Who I am, what is in my hands. What is there because of the Christ that dwells on the inside of me. I do have some scriptures. I want to go to Psalms 139. See if I can find it in my... Verse 13, it says, "Oh yes, you shaped me first inside then out. You formed me in my mother's womb. I thank you, high God, you're breathtaking. Body and soul, I am marvelously made. I worship in adoration. What a creation. You know me inside and out. You know every bone of my body. You know exactly how I was made bit by bit, how I was sculpted from nothing into something. Like an open book, you watched me grow from conception to birth. All stages of my life were spread out before you. The days of my life all prepared before I even lived one day." He created me. He knows me, every part of me. And every part of my life He has prepared. He has taken care of every single day. He has taken care of every single day. From the point, from before I was born. And guess what it says? You've watched me grow. He's been there the whole time. Never left. Never not been there. Never not been observant. Never not known exactly what was going on. I want one more scripture to read. And I read this script. This is, I don't know even how many times I've read this scripture, 1,000,000 times. I don't know. But as I read it today, I read it from a different perspective. I'm going to go to Romans chapter 8 and verse 9. We look at this scripture and we read it from a point of view. A lot of times we read it, since I've been in this ministry, I've always been from a good point of view, never a bad point of view. But it says, "But if God Himself has taken up residence in your life, you can hardly be thinking more of yourself than Him." And I read this, I'm thinking, if God Himself has taken up residence in my life, it says in a minute, and He surely has. God Himself has taken up residence in this life. In this life that I now live, God lives it with me. He lives right here, right where I am, every single day. His life is my life is His life. I'm living this life, and He's living it with me. He's taken up residence. He resides here in this life that I now live. Anyone, of course, who has not welcomed this invisible but clearly present God, the Spirit of Christ, will know what I'm talking about. But you who welcomed Him in whom He dwells, even though you still experience all limitations of sin. You yourself experience life on God's terms. My life, this life that I'm living, that He resides in, I'm experiencing on His terms. Not on my terms, not on your terms, not on the terms that anybody else wants to lay out, but on God's terms. What are God's terms for your life? What are God's terms for your life? Life more abundant? Life full of grace and mercy? Life full of love? Life full of Him? A whole life, a complete life, whole and holy. That is who you are. That's the terms of the life that God has set up for us. It stands to reason, doesn't it, that if the alive and present God who raised Jesus from the dead moves into your life, He'll do the same thing that He did in Jesus, bring you alive to Himself. I am alive the same as Jesus was alive. The same life that brought Him to life brought me to life. That's the same life that lives on the inside of me. And when God lives and breathes in you, and He does, as surely as He did in Jesus, you are delivered from that dead life. With the Spirit living in you, your body will be as alive as Christ. My body. See, He's not talking about, He says your body will be as alive as Christ's. We're not talking about something to happen later. We're talking about my body. The only time my body is any good, the only time my body is present is here on this earth. I am just as alive as Christ was. You don't see, so don't you see that you don't all that old dead do-it-yourself life one red cent. There's nothing in it for you, nothing at all. The best thing you to do is give it a decent burial and get on with your new life. God's Spirit beckons you. There are things to do and places to go. This life that God has things for us to do and places for us to go. There's dreams. There's things that you've seen yourself do. There's things for you to do. There's places for you to go. There's not one person in this room that life is over for. That life is done for. There's not still something for you to do. There's not still somewhere for you to go. There's not still somebody for you to impact. There's a life for you to live. That goes back to that relationship with Him, that knowing who you are, believing that you are the person God created you to be. This resurrection life you received from God is not a timid, grade-tending life. God does not desire for me to hide away in a corner somewhere. God does not desire for me not to be bold in this life that He's given me to live. Not to be arrogant about who I am in Him, who the Christ on the inside of me is. I am bigger and I am better than that. It's an adventurous expecting, greeting God with a childlike, "What's next, Papa?" God's Spirit touches your spirit and confirms who you really are. And we know who He is, and we know who we are, Father and children. Knowing who I am, knowing who He created me to be, and not wavering from that. Not moving from that. Only growing in it. Only allowing that to get bigger and bigger in me. Only allowing that as my relationship with Him grows, my knowledge of who I am and who He created me to be grows in that. And that I become more, that I become bigger, that I don't allow the things that are around me to make me timid, to make me shy, to make me draw back. So that's what I'm seeing, is that I'm pulling back from the life that he desires for me to live. Why? Because I haven't allowed him to grow in me. Because I haven't allowed my knowledge of who he is, of who I am, to grow. Because I've stopped. Because I've put him in a box and I've put myself in a box. Why? Because we all have different reasons. Well, I can't do that because of this reason or that reason. Or the church isn't big enough, or I don't have enough money, or I can't go there, or somebody might think something, who's that weird person? We all have our own reasons. We all have our own reasons. But I don't want to be, I don't want to have an excuse anymore. I don't want there to be a reason. Well, I can explain that because I don't want to explain anything anymore. Why? I just say, my God is just that good. My God is just that good. My God is just that big on the inside of me. That's the only reason I want anymore. That's the only thing I want to come out of my mouth. Is that's how good my God is. That's how big my God is. There's no excuse or reason for anything. Why? Because it's all him. It's all him. I want this life that I now live to be. I got something to do. I got somewhere to go. God has a plan for me. And there's nothing in my way. There's nothing there to stop me. There's nothing there to stop you from being who God created you to be. From actually seeing yourself doing the things that you've envisioned yourself doing. You're bigger than that. Your God is bigger than that. So much. So much bigger than the situation you're in right now and the thing that's going on in life right now. Your body is just alive as Christ was. You are who God created you to be. You are a big, bad person in this world. Why? Because there's a big old God who took up residence on the inside of you. Who lives this life every single day with you. Who has a desire and a plan and a will for you that's bigger, so much bigger than any desire that you could. Those things that you've seen yourself do are just a scratch on the surface. It's just a scratch on the surface of who God created you to be. So much bigger. You are who God created you to be. And he lives this life with you, and there's no reason, no more excuse, no more limitation. Only God. Only God. Thank you.